Pup here. Let's chase down the highlights of Echoes of the Ceiba, the living universe and sacred order of the Maya.
To truly master the art of tour guiding, we must look beyond the itinerary and focus on the person standing in front of us. Every traveler who arrives in Belize is driven by a set of fundamental human needs that dictate whether their trip will be remembered as an excellent adventure or a disappointing failure. Think of the guest's journey as a process that starts long before they arrive. It begins when they first decide to prepare and purchase their tickets, continues through the actual experience on the ground, and finally settles into the memory they carry home. That lasting memory is directly tied to how well their basic needs were met during their stay. As a guide, if you understand the psychological and physiological drivers of travel, you can elevate a simple tour into something life-changing. At the very base of this experience are physiological and psychological needs. These are the essentials like hunger, thirst, and physical comfort. In the context of Belize, we see this clearly in how visitors react to our climate. A tourist coming from a freezing winter in the United States might find 62 degrees Fahrenheit perfectly comfortable in a t-shirt, while a local guide might be shivering. Recognizing these differences in physical comfort is essential for managing a guest's mood. Psychological comfort also involves feeling safe in a new environment. When travelers step out of their usual backyard and into the tropical rainforest or onto the barrier reef, they are looking for a guide who provides a sense of security and stability. Without this foundation of safety and physical well-being, a guest cannot focus on the beauty of the tour. Next, we consider the need for belongingness and affiliation. Humans are social creatures, and very few people want to travel in total isolation. Most visitors come in family groups, with partners, or as part of a specialized group because they want to share the experience and feel close to others. As a guide, you are not just showing them a Maya temple, you are facilitating a shared memory that strengthens their personal bonds. Whether it is a group of scientists or a family with young children, they have a deep-seated need to feel connected to the people around them and the environment they are exploring. Finally, we must address the need for esteem. Travelers want to feel special, recognized, and distinct. There is no such thing as a general tourist. Every individual has unique motivations. When you acknowledge a guest's specific interests, perhaps their passion for marine biology or ancient architecture, you are fulfilling their need for esteem. This is further supported by cognitive and aesthetic needs. Cognitive needs are satisfied through the learning and interpretation you provide, such as explaining the complex layers of the jungle canopy. Aesthetic needs are met by the sheer beauty of Belize, from the vibrant coral to the symmetry of ancient monuments. When a visitor feels respected, safe, and mentally stimulated, their experience becomes excellent, ensuring they leave with a positive and lasting impression of the country. To truly master the art of tour guiding, we must first understand why people leave their homes in the first place and what they expect when they arrive. Travel generally falls into two distinct categories: obligatory and discretionary. Understanding the difference between these two motivations is crucial because it dictates the mindset and needs of your guests. Obligatory travel refers to trips that a person is required to take. These are often non-negotiable and include reasons like medical appointments, job-related assignments, or attending specific family events. That is a great clarification to make regarding travel categories. We will refer to the second category as non-obligatory travel to better reflect its voluntary nature. Non-obligatory travel involves trips taken by choice, such as vacations for leisure, adventure, or personal enrichment. Unlike required trips, these travelers have specific expectations for enjoyment and service. Understanding this distinction helps guides tailor their approach to meet these voluntary goals. Now, let's continue with how these motivations shape the guest's experience. That's a helpful clarification. We will use the term non-obligatory travel to describe these journeys. While obligatory travel is required, non-obligatory travel refers to trips chosen freely for leisure, adventure, or personal interest. This term highlights that the visitor is traveling by choice, driven by their own desires rather than external necessity. Identifying this distinction helps guides better understand the mindset and expectations of their guests. By focusing on the voluntary nature of their trip, you can more effectively satisfy their specific needs for relaxation or discovery. Now, let's continue with our discussion. In these cases, the traveler might not have chosen the destination or the timing, which means their stress levels could be higher, and their focus is on the specific task at hand rather than pure enjoyment. On the other hand, we have discretionary travel. This is what we typically think of when we discuss the tourism industry in places like Belize. Discretionary travel is purely a matter of choice. It is travel for pleasure, relaxation, or personal interest. Whether someone is traveling to shop for specific items, explore a new culture, or simply escape a cold winter for some Caribbean sun, they are doing so because they want to, not because they have to. That's an insightful point to raise regarding our terminology. Essentially, discretionary travel and non-obligatory travel are interchangeable terms used to describe journeys made purely by choice rather than necessity. Whether it is for leisure, adventure, or personal interest, these terms apply to any traveler who is not bound by external requirements. This distinction is vital because it highlights that these guests are seeking a specific, positive experience. By recognizing that their presence is voluntary, you can better tailor your service to meet their unique desires for discovery. Now let's continue with our discussion.
As a guide, recognizing this is vital because discretionary travelers are investing their time and money into an experience. Their expectations are high because the trip is a reward or a fulfillment of a dream. This leads us to the formal definition of tourism itself. While the terms travel and tourism are often used interchangeably, they represent slightly different concepts. Tourism is a service-based industry that involves an occupation centered on providing local services, such as entertainment, accommodation, and catering.
It is a comprehensive system built around the movement of people to places outside their usual environment. What makes tourism unique is that it is comprised of both tangible and intangible components. The tangible parts are the physical things a guest can touch or see: the transportation they ride in, the hotel room where they sleep, the food and beverages they consume, and the souvenirs they buy to take home. However, the intangible components are often what define the success of a tour. These include the feeling of adventure, the educational value of a historical site, the immersion into a new culture, and the sense of escape and relaxation. You cannot hold relaxation in your hand, but it is a product you are selling just as much as a bus seat. Because tourism is service-based, the quality of the experience depends entirely on the treatment the guest receives. A traveler will remember their trip as excellent, mediocre, or poor based on the human interaction and the quality of service provided. As a guide, you are not just showing a site, you are the primary provider of that intangible value, ensuring that the service components align to create a lasting, positive memory for every visitor.
When we discuss the tourism product, it is important to recognize that we are not talking about a single physical item you can pick up from a store shelf. Instead, tourism is a complex, service-based industry built on a unique blend of tangible and intangible components. As a tour guide, understanding the difference between these two categories is essential because it allows you to see the full picture of what your guests are truly purchasing and what they hope to gain from their journey. Let's start with the tangible components.
These are the physical, concrete elements of a trip that a visitor can touch, see, or consume. Think of these as the infrastructure and the hardware of the travel experience. In the context of a Belizean adventure, transportation is one of the most prominent tangible products. This includes everything from the air-conditioned buses moving along the George Price Highway to the small planes flying out to the Keys, and even the unique hand-cranked ferry used to cross the river toward archaeological sites. Accommodation is another major tangible factor, ranging from luxury resorts in San Pedro to rustic eco-lodges in the rainforest. The food and beverages guests consume, the souvenirs they buy at local markets, and the physical equipment used for activities like life jackets or binoculars are all part of the tangible offering. These are the measurable parts of a tour that people often use to judge the value of their money. However, the tangible elements are only half of the story. The true magic of travel lies in the intangible components.
These are the things you cannot touch, hold, or pack into a suitcase.
Intangibles are the experiences, emotions, and intellectual rewards that guests take home in their memories. For example, a visitor traveling from a freezing climate in North America to the warm tropics of Belize is seeking the intangible product of relaxation and escape. They aren't just buying a seat on a plane, they are buying the feeling of the sun on their skin and the peace of mind that comes from leaving their daily stresses behind.
Other intangible products include education, adventure, and culture. When a guide stands before a group at a Maya temple and explains the complex history of the civilization, they are providing the intangible product of knowledge. The sense of wonder a guest feels when seeing a jaguar at the zoo, the thrill of snorkeling through a vibrant reef, or the feeling of belonging that comes from participating in a traditional Garifuna drumming session are all intangible. As a professional guide, your role is to act as the bridge between these two worlds.
You manage the tangibles, ensuring the bus is on time and the equipment is safe, so that the intangibles can flourish. When the physical logistics are handled smoothly, it clears the way for the guests to fully immerse themselves in the culture, adventure, and relaxation that make a Belizean tour truly unforgettable. Belize is a destination that feels like several worlds packed into one, and as a guide, your job is to navigate these diverse categories of attractions effectively. We start at the edge of the land, where the marine world takes center stage. Belize is home to the second largest barrier reef in the world, but the experience begins even before you hit the deep blue. The coastal zones are defined by intricate ecosystems like mangroves, which serve as vital nurseries for baby fish, shrimp, and crabs. Beyond the mangroves, you find seagrass beds, lagoons, and estuaries where the river meets the sea. For visitors interested in fishing, Belize offers two distinct experiences. There is reef fishing, but there is also the highly specialized world of the flats. Here, anglers engage in catch-and-release fishing, targeting elusive species like tarpon and bonefish. Of course, for those looking to submerge themselves, the Great Blue Hole and the surrounding reef offer world-class snorkeling and diving, where they can encounter everything from vibrant coral to reef sharks. Moving inland, we transition from the blue to the green, entering the tropical rainforest. This is a complex, three-tiered world consisting of the forest floor, the understory, and the canopy. You should be prepared to explain the fierce competition for sunlight and the fascinating adaptations trees have developed, such as buttress roots. These massive, wall-like structures provide stability for giants growing on hillsides or near streams. The rainforest is also where you will find the national symbols of Belize. These include the Baird's tapir, our national animal, the keel-billed toucan, our national bird, the mahogany tree, and the elusive black orchid. Understanding the wildlife, like the jaguar, and the hidden life of the jungle floor, where fungi break down organic matter to fuel new growth, allows you to paint a vivid picture for your guests. The third major category is the archaeological heritage of the Maya civilization. Belize was once the heart of this empire, and the landscape is dotted with ancient temples and cities. Sites like Sunantanich, known as the Stone Woman, provide a window into the past. You can discuss the social structure of the Maya, from the elite ruling class to the peasantry, and explain the significance of stelae, the stone slabs where leaders recorded their histories and celestial calendars. Other sites like Caracal boast the tallest man-made structure in the country, Kayana, or the Sky Palace. Whether you are discussing the ancient capital of Santa Rita in the north or the ceremonial centers in the west, these sites represent the intersection of history, religion, and architecture. By weaving together the marine wonders, the biological richness of the rainforest, and the deep history of the Maya sites, you provide a comprehensive look at what makes Belize a truly unique adventure.
To be a truly successful tour guide in a diverse destination like Belize, you must first understand that no two visitors are exactly alike. Every traveler arrives with a unique set of motivations, and your ability to categorize these visitors helps you tailor the experience to meet their specific expectations. In our industry, we generally look at 4 major types of visitors, each requiring a slightly different approach. First, we have the ecotourist. These individuals are deeply committed to the environment and are often seeking a raw, authentic connection with nature.
They are frequently interested in staying in local villages or smaller sustainable lodges. They don't necessarily need the finest linens or fancy amenities. Instead, they value the integrity of the natural landscape and the educational value of the flora and fauna they encounter. On the other hand, we have the comfortable naturalist. This visitor wants to experience the breathtaking beauty of the Belizean jungle or the barrier reef, but they want to do so with a high level of psychological and physical comfort. Accommodating these different types of visitors also means recognizing and preparing for special needs groups. This includes travelers with physical disabilities or those who are elderly and may have limited mobility. For these guests, your role shifts toward being a proactive caregiver and a patient leader. You must be mindful of terrain, pace, and accessibility, ensuring that everyone feels included and safe, regardless of their physical abilities. Special needs also extend to dietary restrictions and health considerations.
A professional guide always checks for allergies, such as peanut sensitivities, or dietary preferences like vegetarianism, especially when coordinating meals at local stops. Finally, consider the dynamics of different group types. A group of 12 scientists from a natural history museum will have very different expectations than a group of 15 college spring breakers. The scientists will crave technical accuracy and deep dives into archaeology and biology, while the spring breakers are primarily motivated by fun and social interaction.
For younger, high-energy groups, you must be a strong, patient leader who sets clear boundaries while keeping the energy positive. By identifying these visitor types and anticipating their specific needs, you transform a standard tour into a personalized, professional adventure that resonates with every guest. When we talk about interpretation in tour guiding, we are talking about the soul of the travel experience. It is not enough to simply state facts or read from a textbook. Interpretation is the art of revealing meanings and relationships through the use of original objects, first-hand experience, and illustrative media. Think about it this way. If you tell a guest that a specific artifact is 1,000 years old, you have given them a fact. But if you tell them the story of the person who carved it, show them a sketch of how it was used, and let them touch the raw material it was made from, you have interpreted it.
This is why we focus on the senses. A great guide makes their guests feel the texture of a limestone carving, taste the richness of local chocolate, and hear the specific calls of the rainforest birds. The statistics are striking. People generally remember only 10% of what they hear, but they remember 90% of what they do. Your goal is to move them from being passive listeners to active participants. To achieve this, effective communication relies on several key pillars. First, you must be truthful. Never make up an answer if you do not know it. Your guests will value honesty over a fabricated story every time. Second, be technical and accurate. You are the expert, and your information should reflect that deep knowledge. Third, you must be entertaining. While you are not a circus performer, you are a storyteller. You should make the information engaging and lighthearted where appropriate to keep their attention. Most importantly, make the information relevant. If you are explaining ancient Maya agricultural techniques to a group of modern gardeners, connect the two worlds. Show them how those ancient methods mirror or differ from what they do back home. This relevance is what creates a lasting bond between the visitor and the destination. Beyond the stories you tell, your professional conduct sets the stage for the entire trip. Visitors have very specific expectations when they book a tour in Belize. They expect you to be honest and provide accurate information, but they also expect a high level of respect. This means treating every guest, every coworker, and every local resident with genuine courtesy and dignity. Professionalism also means being punctual and prepared. A guide who shows up late or forgets their equipment has already lost the trust of the group. You must also adapt your presentation to your audience. If your group is passionate about birdwatching, focusing entirely on architectural ruins will lead to a disconnect. By observing their interests and adjusting your narrative, you ensure high visitor satisfaction. Remember, you are a bridge between the guest and the culture. By mastering these principles of interpretation and meeting these high standards of professional communication, you ensure that every guest leaves with a deeper understanding and a respectful appreciation of the world around them.
The success of any tour is built on a foundation of clear communication and a well-organized structure. This begins the moment you meet your guests with a professional welcome and a thorough tour briefing. Think of the briefing as your roadmap for the day. You need to cover the essentials: the where, when, how long, and why. For a trip to a site like Sunantunich, this means informing your guests that the journey from Belize City will take about 2 hours, passing through the twin towns of Santa Elena and San Ignacia before reaching the village of San Jose Secutz.
You should explain the unique logistics, such as crossing the Mopan River on a hand-cranked ferry. By laying out these benchmarks, you reduce guest anxiety and allow them to relax and enjoy the experience. During this initial phase, setting expectations is vital. You are not just a source of information, you are a manager of behavior and safety. This is the time to remind guests about basic protocols: no smoking on the bus, keeping limbs inside the vehicle, and the importance of using garbage bags to keep Belize beautiful.
If you are guiding a group of energetic young travelers, like college spring breakers, your tone should be patient but firm. You must emphasize respect for the archaeological sites, reminding them not to scratch the temple walls or disturb other visitors with excessive noise. It is also the perfect moment to check on personal needs, such as asking if everyone has their necessary medications, or reminding them to stay hydrated throughout the day. Once you arrive at the destination, the tour moves into the presentation and interpretation phase.
Effective interpretation is more than just reciting dates or names. It is about making the information relevant and entertaining. Remember the golden rule of engagement. People generally remember only 10% of what they hear, but they remember 90% of what they do or feel. To make your presentation stick, you should become a storyteller. Instead of just talking about the ancient Maya, show them sketches of the Maya calendar, or bring a small carving to demonstrate how they worked with stone.
Use the natural environment to your advantage. If you are in the rainforest, do not just point at a tree, let them experience it. Show them how to identify the copal tree and explain its use as a repellent or incense. Use descriptive stories to explain the complex social structures of the elite and the peasantry, or the significance of a stela. You can even use sensory experiences, like showing how a specific leaf feels sticky or how a certain fruit can be sliced. By engaging their senses of touch, sight, and even smell, you transform a lecture into an unforgettable adventure.
Throughout the presentation, keep the dialogue two-way. Ask your guests if they have visited other sites to help them make connections and feel like active participants in the journey. This organized yet flexible approach ensures that the tour is both educational and deeply engaging. Creating a tour blueprint is the final step in transforming a general plan into a professional, high-stakes itinerary. This document acts as your master guide, ensuring that every detail, from group demographics to emergency contacts, is accounted for before you even meet your guests. To master the blueprint, you must be able to adapt your style to the specific needs of different groups, such as a high-energy group of college spring breakers or a detail-oriented team of scientists. Imagine you are leading 15 college spring breakers on a trip from Belize City to the archaeological site of Sunantunich.
Your blueprint starts with Section 1, where you identify the group's profile. In this scenario, your guests are mostly under 20 years old and are likely looking for fun rather than a dense academic lecture. You must note special requirements here, such as dietary restrictions. For instance, if 5 members are vegetarians or one has a severe peanut allergy, that information must be front and center to ensure their safety during the lunch stop at a local favorite like Benny's restaurant. Section 2 of the blueprint focuses on the tour briefing and logistics.
You need to establish a clear timeline. A typical trip to Sunantunich involves a 90-minute drive along the George Price Highway to San Ignacio, followed by another 30 minutes to the village of San Jose Secutz. You must account for the time spent on the iconic hand-cranked ferry across the Mopan River. A good blueprint schedules these transitions, aiming for an arrival around 9:30 in the morning if you leave Belize City at 7. During the briefing, you will also set the tone, reminding young travelers about safety protocols, such as not drinking alcohol on the bus and respecting the site by not scratching graffiti on the ancient temples. Section 3 covers the actual interpretation and presentation. For spring breakers, you might focus on the wow factor of El Castillo, the second tallest man-made structure in Belize, using sketches of the Maya calendar to make the history tangible. Contrast this with a blueprint for a group of scientists canoeing down the Sibin River. These guests will expect technical accuracy, scientific names of rainforest flora, and discussions on biodiversity. The blueprint helps you decide which interpretive tools to bring, whether it is a physical carving to show Maya craftsmanship or samples of local plants like allspice to engage the senses. Finally, your blueprint should include a summary of the day and an inspirational closing. For the younger crowd, you might leave them with a message about conservation, urging them to join a group that protects the very birds and trees they admired during their Belizean adventure. By filling out every section of the blueprint, you ensure the experience is organized, safe, and perfectly tailored to your audience. A professional tour is much more than a collection of stories and facts. It is a carefully choreographed experience where timing is everything. As a guide, you are the master of the clock, and your ability to manage the schedule determines whether a guest feels relaxed and cared for or rushed and frustrated. To achieve this, you must distinguish between your overall time frame and your specific benchmarks. The time frame represents the broad boundaries of your day, the start and end points, while benchmarks are the internal milestones that keep the rhythm of the tour moving smoothly. Let's look at a practical scenario, such as taking a group from Belize City to the ancient Maya site of Sununtunich. If you meet your guests at 7 in the morning, your first time frame is the journey west. You should account for approximately 90 minutes of driving to reach the twin towns of Santa Elena and San Ignacio. Following that, it is another 30 minutes to reach the village of San Jose Sucotes. Being vocal about this 2-hour travel window is essential for managing guest expectations. It allows them to settle in for the ride along the George Price Highway, knowing exactly when they will arrive at the hand-cranked ferry. Once you reach the site, benchmarking becomes your primary tool. This involves breaking down the visit into smaller, manageable chunks of time. Instead of simply telling guests you will be at the ruins for 2 hours, you should have a mental or written map of smaller goals. For instance, you might allocate 10 minutes for the initial briefing near the entrance, 15 minutes to explore the residential area, and 45 minutes for the ascent and interpretation of El Castillo. By sticking to these internal benchmarks, you ensure that you don't spend so much time on the history of the rainforest that you are forced to rush the climax of the archaeological experience. Lunch is a vital benchmark that requires at least 90 minutes of the schedule. This is not just a time to eat, it is a time for guests to decompress and process what they have seen. Whether you are taking them to a local favorite like Benny's restaurant or providing a picnic, you must account for the time it takes to transition from the site, wash up, and enjoy the meal without feeling like they are on a conveyor belt. Throughout the day, your role is to provide clear instructions and reminders. You must communicate exactly when it is time to board the bus or gather at the ferry crossing. By managing these small increments of time effectively, you create a seamless flow. This structure allows you to head back to the city by 2 in the afternoon, giving guests a chance to enjoy the scenery on the return trip. When you master these benchmarks, the tour feels organized and professional, allowing the guests to focus on the beauty of Belize rather than the hands of their watches. Safety protocols are the backbone of any professional tour operation, transforming a guide from a storyteller into a protector. When we look at the equipment schedule in a tour blueprint, we have to recognize that it changes drastically based on the specific activity. If you are leading a dive, your schedule includes specialized gear, like oxygen tanks, regulators, and depth gauges. However, even on a standard terrestrial tour to a site like Sununtunich, your equipment schedule must prioritize basic survival and guest comfort.
This includes keeping ice boxes stocked with plenty of bottled water and ensuring guests have access to gear like binoculars for safe observation. A key part of your equipment briefing is checking in with your guests about their personal needs. You must always remind your guests to bring their specific personal medications. A tragic but real example involves guests who suffer from asthma attacks or other underlying conditions during a hike. If they haven't been reminded to carry their inhalers or emergency meds, a manageable situation can quickly turn fatal.
A critical part of the safety framework is having a clear chain of communication for emergencies. Your tour blueprint should list specific contact numbers that are reliable and professional. This means having the main company number for daytime hours and a direct line to a manager or boss for after-hours emergencies. It is best to avoid using personal contacts like family members, as professional emergencies require professional support systems. If an injury occurs on the trail or in the mountains, the standard procedure is usually to stay put.
Movement can often worsen a physical injury. As a guide, you remain with the guest and wait for the company to dispatch a secondary vehicle or an ambulance to your specific coordinates. In the tropical climate of Belize, managing heat-related illnesses is one of a guide's most frequent challenges. You must be vigilant for signs of heat stroke, such as a guest's skin turning bright red, profuse sweating, or heavy labored breathing. The immediate response is to cool the body down by wetting their head or wrapping them in a damp cloth to lower their core temperature.
Providing water is essential, but it should be given in small, controlled sips rather than large gulps to avoid further complications. For other medical emergencies like seizures, the primary goal is to clear the area of any objects that could cause injury and monitor the person closely until help arrives. When dealing with severe bleeding, use extreme caution with tourniquets. While they are life-saving tools, improper use or leaving them on too long can lead to the loss of a limb. Remember that the body, especially the brain, needs a constant flow of oxygen. Just 6 minutes of deprivation can lead to permanent damage. Finally, for marine guides, diving safety involves strictly managing the time between deep dives and air travel. Guests must understand the risks of decompression sickness, or the bends, where nitrogen bubbles form in the blood. If a guest flies too soon after a deep dive, these bubbles can be fatal. By mastering these safety protocols and equipment schedules, you ensure that every Belizean adventure is as professional as it is memorable.